Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam, and me on today I'm joined by Connor.
Hey, guys.
And only Connor. Mike is out doing some errands or something, but that's okay. Connor and I are going to have a very good discussion about why video games aren't good anymore or aren't fun anymore. So, I feel like you hear this over and over again throughout the years. No matter what era it is, you always hear, oh, video games were better back in the day. And to me, I hear this from people who I feel like aren't really plugged into the games industry anymore. Like maybe at one point they played a lot of games. Maybe when they were a teenager, they grow up and they're like, oh, video games aren't what they used to be. And I just think it's a very misinformed opinion. And obviously you can have whatever opinion you want, but I strongly believe that games are better than they have ever been. But you keep seeing this idea come up over and over again. And so, Connor, what do you make of that?
The one I keep seeing is the YouTube video on the video on YouTube that is Minecraft, and it says why gaming isn't fun anymore. And it's this dude that's been it seemingly hasn't played a video game other than Minecraft in 12 years, and thinks that every update Mojang makes the game worse, which isn't true. The real answer is a lot of the time, sorry, bud, you're not a middle schooler anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an element to video games had like an air of mysticism about them when you're a kid. They're like the most magical thing, and they definitely lose that when you get older.
And you have so much time to put into them as well. Because one of the biggest things about this for me is I remember feeling that way a little bit in college. But really, it wasn't video games. It was me. I was stressed out. I was so busy. I was working several jobs. I had school. I had everything. And then I got out of college and I started my full-time job. And suddenly and I was like single and everything. And I had all this free time again.
Yeah.
And it was like being a kid again. It was like getting home from school when I got off work and I could go play these video games and just enjoy them. I didn't have all these stressors in my life anymore.
Yeah, and I have a very similar experience, and I know we're extreme outliers, Connor. Most people
it's
get
the
more
opposite,
stressed, where
but
college was pretty stress-free, and afterwards was very stressful. But
I think we did it right.
Yeah, we're kind of unique in that case. But I agree with you. Where when I was in college, that was by far the most stressful period of my life.
Absolutely,
nothing else even comes close, and I did find time to play video games, but certainly not as much as I am able to.
We found time to do this
now
show.
Or beforehand. Yeah, that's true. I did find time to do the show. Well, actually, just commenting on that a little bit, we started this show, I think, my last year of college. Yeah, so I did college for 5 years because I switched majors my senior year, so I did an extra year. And then the last year was the only year I had at college that was actually what a college year should be, where you just focus more on yourself, your social life, and not so much on grinding away at a 20-plus hour schedule. So my last year of college was definitely my most enjoyable because I wasn't killing myself over school. And that's really when I started getting back into playing video games more. That's when we started the podcast. But all that to say, but all that to say, I really do think that in a lot of these cases where people make this claim that video games aren't as good as they used to be, I think it's just you've changed, and that's okay. Maybe you've gravitated away from video games, but I think from an objective point of view, you look at the variety of games we have today, you look at the different experiences that are offered, indie games, AAA games, VR games, and
it's there. Yeah.
You look at the holistic picture. I can't imagine having that opinion. And obviously there are down years. There are some years that aren't as good as others, but if we were to have a hypothetical graph of the overall quality of the video game industry, I'd say it just goes up.
Yeah, roughly every 8 years, video games are twice as good as they were. That's an S&P 500 joke.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I 100% agree. It is not guaranteed that a sequel to a game is going to be better than the original, but 10 years later, gaming is going to be overall in a better place than it was 10 years ago. And that's just always been true, I think. I'm someone who spends a lot of time playing old video games, not even necessarily ones I have nostalgia for. I love going back and playing retro games. I'm playing through Yoshi's Island right now, and I'm having a really good time with it. But if you like sit down and I'm like, do I have to pick those games or even a modern game that I don't necessarily have as much good to say about, like Bayonetta 3 or something, I'm going to take Bayonetta 3. Like, that game slaps. Yeah.
I guess one part of this argument is that all the conveniences that are now standardized too, you know, things that we now take for granted that weren't in video games back in the day. I mean, if you really yearn for the games back in the day, right? We're talking NES era or before. Yeah. Are you really yearning for these ultra difficult games that didn't have save slots that you just had to play over and over again? And it's fine if you do.
I do like, I like
even
those
if you
games.
do, those games still exist today.
Yeah, and
that's the thing.
They're easier to get a hold of.
I think something that is lost on the people making this argument is that the games industry is very additive. It just keeps growing and growing. It's not like the games of today replace the games of yesterday, and now you can't play those anymore, or you can't play games like those anymore. I really can't think of a single genre or type of game that has just fully died off.
There were at one point genres that were like pretty underserved. Like 3D platformers did have a dry spell before the indie scene kind of caught up. Now there's like indie 3D platformers all the time. And then the big ones are like Mario Odyssey is incredible. There are a lot of 3D platformers are just in a very good spot right now.
No, but I remember that era too. And as someone who grew up on 3D platformers, I distinctly remember feeling like, hey, these games, you know, there's something missing, right? Yeah. In the suite of games available right now, there's something missing that I really miss, and that has been filled, right? I just feel like the more time passes, the more of these gaps are covered, and just the bigger the industry grows. I just don't buy the notion that things were different, things were better back in the day, because I think those things are still there, and just there's more of it. They're still here, and there's just more of everything from my perspective.
I think a lot of the perspective that gaming has gotten worse comes from an unwillingness to branch out as well.
Yeah, I think that would be my biggest advice to someone who earnestly, and not kind of like a, let's say if you're trying to pick a fight, right? That's not, you know, we don't have nothing to say. But if you earnestly believe that video games were better back in the day, and you don't know how to shake that belief, what I would say to you is to just play more games. Right?
Even within the same genre.
There's so much inside and outside your wheelhouse probably that you haven't even dipped your toe in.
Like Call of Duty is one I see a lot that they're talking about in these videos, and it's, if you are tired with Call of Duty, try not Team Fortress 2, Titanfall 2. Although it's a little harder to play online now, but that'll really shake things up for you. Try Doom 2016, Doom Eternal. There are a lot of really excellent first-person shooters.
Yeah, and
in the last 5 years.
COD, right? I do think this opinion is common with people who play only the Maddens and the CODs every year, right?
Yeah,
and if that's all video gaming is to you, then maybe you do have a point where those specific games, because of their yearly nature, they can't really innovate that much year to year.
Right.
Sometimes it even feels like they go a step or two backwards in terms of, I know some of the later COD games were very, very much rejected by the COD purists, but like you said, I mean, if you're willing to take that extra step, you'll find a world where not only are there a lot of games like COD, but there are games that are informed by COD and maybe do things that COD can't do because they're too much of a machine to really innovate anymore.
Right. And I would say even though I like these games, I think if it was all I played, I don't think I would care for the Sony AAA archetype if I thought it was the only thing that existed. Like, you really have to look outside of things like that as well, I think, to get a holistic picture of gaming.
Yeah, I hear that argument too. I don't know if I agree with that, just because I feel like those games are carried by their stories so much that I'm invested in them, even if they can feel kind of samey sometimes.
Yeah, right? I just think
it's almost like a really good season of TV or a really good movie.
Yeah.
to me.
I think if you're sitting there and you've got beef with modern games all feeling the same, that's because you're playing a bunch of games that come from the same place.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Yeah. And, I mean, take me, for example, right? Late high school, early college, I was pretty much only a Sony purist, right? I was all in on Uncharted, Last of Us, Horizon, all of those games. I was just like God of War added to that list. I thought, this is where gaming's at. This is the best gaming can be. And why would I ever want to do anything else? And while those games are great, eventually, if you eat, I don't know, steak every day, you're going to get sick of it. You need to introduce some variety into your entertainment. And very shortly after that era is when I discovered roguelikes. And that became another, and it's almost like the complete opposite of that genre.
Yeah.
And that really introduced some nice variety to my tastes and really kind of expanded my tastes and honestly changed what I look for in a good video game. Really kind of informs my taste a lot more now. So branching out is very important. I mean, you never know what you might discover, especially with the huge deluge of variety we have today. The indie game scene alone, right? Even just taking the step from AAA into indie, you can find yourself in a world with games. They might be more bite-sized in nature, but they'll offer you experiences you probably didn't even imagine. Probably you couldn't even imagine if you only played AAA games.
Right. Creativity not seen anywhere outside of like Mario Odyssey, maybe.
It's so funny you're bringing up Mario Odyssey because I think just last episode
I was mad
tore
at it.
into it. Yeah,
Mario Odyssey. I think of every time we talk about the creativity of indie games, though, because there was a joke I saw when that game first came out that was like, "Rest in peace, indie developers whose entire game hinged on a mechanic that Super Mario Odyssey plays with for 35 seconds and then throws away."
That's true, and that is something that is a luxury AAA games can have, where they can just devote all these resources to one 30-second segment. Like, the musical number in Mario Odyssey, right? That never happened again.
Of an indie game, yeah.
And that was
actually
just like
it happens twice.
Does it happen twice? When
there
does it
are
happen?
two. The music segment in New Donk City, there are 2 moons associated with it, I believe.
Oh, okay.
You're supposed to run the same one twice, and then there's kind of a musical segment at the end of the game. There's like another song where when you're playing as Bowser.
Right. Yeah. But the one in New Donk City, there was
that's the one. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah. They had like unique gameplay and everything, and but
and that's another thing. Like, I would not pick Mario 64. I don't think over Mario Odyssey if I had to pick between the two. Like that, they've just gotten so much better at capturing that magic, and really just the way Mario controls is so much better in Odyssey.
I mean, obviously, nostalgia is a huge factor in this equation when people argue that video games were better in the past.
Yeah,
but. And everyone has nostalgia for different eras, right? I mean, I have nostalgia for the N64, but I don't know. My youngest sister, if she played video games, probably wouldn't even know what an N64 was, because because of her age. So, I mean, your nostalgia also heavily colors your opinion there. But again, I'd recommend just using your nostalgia to maybe inform some of the new things you explore rather than just being stuck in this idea of like, hey, video games were just the best when I was between the ages of 4 and 10 or whatever.
And if you are someone who thinks gaming peaked with Mario 64, you should probably check out the ROM hack scene for that game. It's excellent. There's a lot of good stuff there. The Last Impact, Star Road, and I think Return to Yoshi's Island is one that's coming soon. All look really good. Haven't played them myself.
Well, you talk about ROM hacks, but I think the people with this opinion are largely...
probably unwilling to do that, yeah.
Right, yeah. Very much kind of not willing to dive deep into these things, but that's okay, right? Because even companies like Nintendo and Sony are realizing that, hey, there are these people out there that are like, why is gaming not like how it used to be? And now they have all these services that offer these older games. Yep. And that's honestly a huge draw to a lot of people. Like the Nintendo Switch Online, the NES, SNES, Nintendo 64 capability, and then Sony's adding all sorts of PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 games to their PlayStation Plus catalog as well. Yeah. So, I mean, but that just further bolsters my argument, right? if you really do believe that games peaked 20 years ago, whatever, just you can still play those games now on modern hardware, and that wasn't always the case.
And I spend a lot of time doing that. I have a whole emulation setup that I like to use. I own the games typically. I actually have a retro setup in my bedroom that actually has an NES, a Super NES, an N64, a GameCube, PS1, and PS2 all hooked up at any given time. And I have a pretty big collection for those. But I'm often just too lazy to even go in there and do that. And I just fire up emulators on my big screen and play that way.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on the mood. And that's a great way to play. There's a lot of great games, you know. You probably didn't play the original 3 Castlevania games. Those are excellent. Everyone should play at least 1 and 3 for a little bit, in my opinion. The old Zeldas. A Link to the Past was one. I remember you picked up A Link to the Past like in the last few years, right? And loved it.
Yeah, and it holds up incredibly well.
Yeah, Super Metroid's the same way. Super Mario World. A lot of Super NES games look, and Yoshi's Island 2, I'm playing that right now. They look like they came out yesterday, and they're indie. That's how they feel, you know? The indies have so successfully co-opted that Super NES style.
Mm-hmm.
Another aspect of this whole thing is I think it's a community side of things. You will not enjoy gaming as much as you did when you were a kid and all of your friends were playing video games with you when you're playing them alone as an adult. And something I've done to counter that, I got on that big Monster Hunter kick and nobody was playing it with me. I just went and I live in Pittsburgh, and I found a local Pittsburgh Monster Hunter Discord. And I went on there and talked to some people and made some new friends. And like, we didn't even play together much. And that's fine. Just having people like, we're all hyped about the new trailer that just came out today. And that's like sick. Sometimes you have to make new friends as an adult, tragically.
Yeah,
it's not an easy
which is
thing
very
to do.
difficult. One of the most difficult things you could possibly do. But
sometimes you have to make that leap so that you can enjoy things.
But hey, yeah, if you're looking to get back into video games again, that's a pretty good suggestion, especially now when video games are more ubiquitous than ever. I mean, you will certainly find people around you, no matter where you are, that have this interest and can probably guide you back into it if you're interested in getting back into it. But
most games also, if you're not interested in people locally, most games will have a Discord that has a looking for group channel in it so that you can find people to play with. I know Sea of Thieves has a very good looking for group channel in their Discord. Our Discord is a good place for that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't have a looking for group. We could make one if there was a little more demand for it, but yeah, it's a great tool for making new friends, for finding a community. And I think community is a huge aspect of gaming, which may be a big part of why we can get so into stuff now, is doing this show even.
Well, especially because when we were kids, I mean, it was a very common thing for, hey, I'm going to go over to whoever's house and play video games.
Yeah.
Because, you know, as a kid, you couldn't just buy whatever you wanted. And you had maybe a system and some games, but you know, there was always the other side of the equation, right? Who was the friend with the PlayStation? Who was the friend with the Sega Dreamcast, right? So it was always this very social thing, playing video games in the past, which I miss, right? Because to me, today, playing video games is a very solitary activity, which I enjoy, right? It doesn't have to be that way, but it is for me. But back in the day, it absolutely was, yeah.
I have friend groups. I played Mario Kart with a friend for a few hours Sunday of this week.
Yeah.
I play Fortnite with some of my friends 2 or 3 times a week, and it's just kind of our chill. Sometimes I'll have a drink and we're just hanging out talking. This is like just how we catch up because we don't live in the same city anymore. My cousin came over and played Smash Bros. Recently. I still do a ton of multiplayer gaming. The thing I don't do as much as I used to, which as a kid, and I know people that do this now and they seem to have a great time with it, but sharing a single player game with another person is not something that comes up much for me. I'm usually just playing them alone. And I don't know if it would add to the experience for me, because I can get frustrated watching somebody, like if I see the solution and they're not doing it, I get frustrated with that.
Yeah, so I have a very different, so I love playing single player games with other people. Because very much, for me, it's the case of, here's this thing I really love and really care about. If I'm showing you a single-player game, it's something I fell in love with, right? I remember showing Uncharted 4 to my best friend from high school, Justin, and he didn't even own a PlayStation, right? He's an Xbox guy. He never heard of Uncharted. I was just like, dude, you have to play this. And I remember, gosh, when was this? It must have been college, right? Because Uncharted came out when I was in college. But I think it was a summer, we were both back in Charleston from college, and he'd just come over some days, and I was like, hey, play Uncharted. I will just sit here and watch you.
Yeah.
And he was just like, are you sure about that? I don't know. I said, no, play it. And he played it, and he was so hooked. He could not stop, right? He'd be the one texting me every day and be saying, we were both college age at this point. He was like, hey, can I come over and play Uncharted? So, yeah.
This is something
very much, even single player games can have a very fun social aspect to me.
This is something the Switch was really great for, too. I remember when Breath of the Wild was still new. Was it? Had to be Breath of the Wild. I remember taking my Switch over to a friend's house, and I think we did this with Tears of the Kingdom a little, too, maybe. And just sitting and playing the new Zelda in the same room, hanging out and having a good time doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, especially a game like that with all the secrets and everything to share with each other. And it doesn't feel... like, you feel dirty when you Google it, but when your friend tells you about it, that feels natural and good.
Yeah, right. It does, yeah. Which, I don't know. It's just a mental thing. But...
yeah, it's a personal preference. I don't look down on anybody who Googles the answer, but...
well, maybe it's because, it does harken back to our childhood.
Yeah.
Right, where...
the playground.
Which I do have to wonder, with kids growing up today... they're all online already,
they're also sitting around the lunch table playing Smash Ultimate on a Switch, though.
Oh, is that happening? I mean, I don't know.
That happened at my little brother's school, for sure, when he was still in high
That's
school.
Cool.
His senior, He was a senior. He's not that young.
Yeah.
When Ultimate came out, which was 6 years ago, for those keeping score.
But you got to think, most of these kids are playing kind of live service multiplayer games.
Yeah.
And those are inherently online only. There's no local split screen for a lot of them. So
I think Fortnite has local split
screen. I think
screen.
Fortnite has it.
Yeah, it sucks, but it
Fortnite
exists.
has it. Yeah, but I guess my point is that kids growing up today are a lot more. It's social in a different way, where it's social over the internet, where we were social in person for a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I went into, I guess, middle school and high school, that's when Xbox Live really took off. That's when the online gaming thing really kind of took its root in my friend group. But prior to that, it was always just, hey, we're going to go over to your house and play Morrowind or whatever. And, it was a lot of fun.
Disgustingly, I spent a great deal of time in elementary and maybe early middle school. Skype wasn't a thing yet. Xbox Live wasn't a thing yet. I was on the phone, like our landline, and my parents bought me a little headset for our landline phone, so I could talk on the phone with my buddy Antonio and play Sonic Adventure 2 together.
Nice.
We were both just raising Chow in the Chow Garden. And I still remember it. We did it all the time. And it was like my parents got... I don't know if we had it before or we got it for this. We had a second phone line so that I wouldn't be clogging up
wow.
Yeah.
A dedicated Chow hotline.
Chow Garden phone line for me.
That's crazy. No, I do remember. And gosh, we're just sounding like old men right
myself now, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we had landline phones. No one really had a cell phone.
This was pre-cell phone. Like, I remember cell phones were new-ish at the time, and my parents were always mad at my buddy Christian's parents because they would only turn on their cell phone to make calls, and then they would turn it back off.
Right. I mean, back then, you didn't really use a cell phone for anything else, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have the entire internet on your cell phone. But yeah, I mean, I distinctly remember calling friends' houses, hey, first their parents pick up and like, hey, can I come over to Timmy's house and play video games? And like, oh, sure, yeah, whatever. But yeah, it was just, it was a relic of a past time. But yeah, I guess kind of looping that back into the topic of the discussion, I do think nostalgia can really blind people a lot of the time to the current quality of video games. But, nothing lasts forever, right? That era is a very special era in my heart. But I wouldn't say that was overall better in terms of the video games we're getting than today.
Right.
Because, right, I didn't just stop playing video games when that stopped being a thing.
Yeah.
So
this feeds into my rant I've gone on the show like a dozen times that Ocarina of Time is not the greatest game of all time because many excellent Zelda games have come after it that I would rather play than Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because in a greatest of all time discussion, a lot of people heavily weight, myself included, the feeling at the time, right?
Yeah.
The impact at the time versus how it is now. Because if it was just like, okay, Ocarina of Time compared with all modern games now, then I'd agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it
and that's what
doesn't
I'm
even come
saying
close to a lot of
greatest
games.
all time.
But-
If we're talking most influential, how it felt at the time, I still think Breath of the Wild gives it a run for its money. I don't think any other Zelda game does. Yeah.
I think you're right. Where I do think 10 years from now, because obviously Breath of the Wild, we're 5 years away from it now.
No,
oh my gosh, no,
it came out
7?
in 2017. Yeah.
Oh
so
my
that's 7 years
gosh.
ago. Yeah.
That's crazy. But
It's nostalgic now.
it is, yeah. But
Yeah.
I guess what I was saying is that a couple decades from now, I do think Breath of the Wild will almost unanimously be looked at over Ocarina of Time.
I agree.
Like, but who knows? Maybe a couple decades from now, there will be another Zelda game that makes Breath of the
I
Wild
hope
look
so. I'll be
juvenile.
I'll be disappointed if that doesn't happen.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine taking Breath of the Wild and giving it to, I don't know, 8-year-old you.
He'd be ruined for the next 15 years.
Yeah. I mean, no other game would come close, you know?
Frankly, no other game has really done it yet.
But I mean, that's a perfect example of,
yeah.
Look, video games really are getting better.
Yeah.
you just have to play
better.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people did play Breath of the Wild. It sold like hotcakes.
Oh, I mean, obviously. But I mean, that's the perfect example of where oftentimes people point to Ocarina of Time and they're like, Zelda never got better than this. And
that's just,
I'm like, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Are you positive?
There's an argument that Wind Waker was a little too baby mode, but Twilight Princess is really good.
I think you can make an argument for all of them except for when you get to Breath of the Wild. And then it's very clear, I feel like, yes, maybe you just prefer the older Zelda style. Maybe you just have a lot of nostalgia. But I think looked at holistically, there's no world where Ocarina of Time could be better than Breath of the Wild. But maybe that's a hot take. That probably is a hot take. People are probably going to get mad hearing that, but that's what I think.
Yell at him in the Discord.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get recommended those videos all the time, and I get the feeling. It's just, you're just feeling depression.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Donkey did a video on it too, right?
Probably, yeah.
Has he done a video? I know he's talked about it. Like,
he's probably doing a sarcastic.
I remember hearing him on a podcast where I vividly remember this. He was on a podcast. I forget with who, but the podcaster just told him like, "Hey, I know you're a video game YouTuber. Games aren't as good as they used to be. Do you know why that is?" And Donkey just sort of looked at him and was just like, "Yeah, I just completely disagree with that," and kind of told him that no, basically the same things we're discussing here, that you just have to kind of branch out and try more things, and then once you see the more holistic picture, then it's very clear that video gaming is just getting better.
Yeah. I'm sorry you're not going to get to play Modern Warfare 2 when it released again, but technically, I mean, I guess you did get to do that like a year or two ago, but
well, just kind of speaking anecdotally on COD, I mean, people seem to be very excited for this new COD coming out.
Really?
Black Ops. Is it just called Black Ops 6?
1 million.
That's wild. It's just called Black Ops 6, but it seems to be very good and it is checking all the boxes for that audience. So
yeah.
All right. Do you want to say anything else to the people who claim video games peaked X amount of time ago?
No. Play more games. That's all I got. Or make friends. Really, or even play less games. Maybe that might be the problem too. You might need to go out and do some other stuff for a bit. You can't just play video games all the time. You got to remember.
Yeah, because even if
even
though there's so much variety now in video games, you can get tired of just playing video games at the same time, right? Even if you play a different genre, a different type of game every single day, eventually you get tired of it. So, yeah, maybe go just touch some grass, perhaps. Yeah.
I hope your YouTube video did good, but maybe do better next time.
All right. I can start us off with what we're playing because what I have is most assuredly not as exciting as you.
Okay.
I gotta say, I think I'm in love, Connor, with Slay the Spire.
Oh, even more Slay the Spire.
That's all I'm playing.
You finally beat the secret boss, I heard.
I did. Once again, right? Because the last time I beat him was on Switch, But I finally beat him on PlayStation with the defect. It felt really good to do that. It was a very tanky build that I beat him with. But
so you just beat him the one time, or is it because this isn't a knock, but some roguelikes, once you figure it out, then you can do it consistently.
So here's the thing. I kid you not. I've basically only been playing Slay the Spire. God knows how many hours.
Yeah.
Almost every single run I've made it to the secret final boss since then.
Wow.
Right?
Okay. So that's what I was saying. Yeah.
I have very markedly improved at the game, but not once have I beat him again. Last night, I got him into single-digit health.
No. From what? What's he start
from
at?
like 800.
Okay. Yeah.
Single-digit health. And I died. And I basically threw my portal. I was like, I can't play this anymore. I just stopped. I was like, I cannot do this right now. It was so incredibly frustrating.
That hurts.
Because a run of Slay the Spire is not a trivial thing. That's
not
like
short either, is it?
Yeah, that's like a 30 minute to 1 hour investment.
Yeah.
Right. 30 minute if you're going blazingly fast.
Yeah.
Right? Because what I find as I'm getting better at Slay the Spire, and I can feel myself getting better, which is really cool, is that sometimes you literally just have to stop and just think about a move for a while before you make it. Whether it's decision, whether it's a card play, whether it's a decision to add a card, remove a card, upgrade a card, sometimes you really have to think and game out, where am I going with this? What kind of deck am I trying to build? What effect will this action have 20, 30 minutes from now? And it's just astonishing that A, there's a game that demands that level of thinking.
Yeah.
And B, the fact that I can feel myself now, I physically feel myself getting better at this game, where I have to actually think about these things I previously never even considered before. And that to me is just a mark of a game with so much depth and just so much going on in it that you really have to delve into every single detail when playing it. And again, right, this layer of intensely thinking about Slay the Spire, this is something new to me, right? This is something that I did not do, I guess 50 hours ago or whatever.
Did you do this last time you played Slay the Spire?
No,
on your
no.
Switch? So this is all new. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely like, it's like this onion where the more layers I peel back, the more I realize every single decision in this game has a drastic impact on your outcome. I mean, every single one. And it snowballs, right? From the very first decision you make. And it's just incredible to me that, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that I'm just appreciating the design of this game so much more now. And I'm just sort of in awe that this game is as brilliant as it is.
You're like seeing the Matrix now.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. No, this is why I love roguelikes, is I love A and S tier roguelikes, because that is how it feels at the end of them. Like, that you just, everything you see an item floor 1, I don't know what the structure of Slay the Spire is like, but you see an item floor 1, and you immediately see how this run is going to go from here, or how it has to go for you to win, at least.
So that's the thing, though, with Slay the Spire, right? You see that exactly like you're saying. You see it, and you see what's going to happen, and then you get hit with a curveball, and you have to adapt to that.
Yep.
Right? And that, to me, is a mark of a great roguelike, where, you know, you can have your plans, and they can be really good, but what determines if you win or not is how flexible you are with those plans and how well you adapt to new circumstances.
I think that's why I like roguelikes so much, is I'm not a planner. I'm very I'm somebody who likes to get thrown off all the time, because if I have the structure and the plan, it's not going to be a very good plan.
But what I love about Slay the Spire, right, I still have not even tried the Ascensions, right? So Ascensions 1 through 20, which are additional difficulty modifiers. I sincerely do believe, and there's a reason I haven't tried them yet. I'm still just trying to beat the secret final boss with each character.
Yeah.
But I firmly do believe I will be fine for the first few Ascensions. I do think I'm at that level now, if I tried them. I just haven't tried them yet. And I will try them. But going all the way up to Ascension 20, that I've been watching a lot of Slay the Spire on YouTube, and just seeing the level of difficulty there, it seems to me, if you make one, not even bad decision, one decision that is suboptimal, you're dead.
You're cooked. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just crazy to me.
Yeah.
So, but I'm looking forward to attempting that when I finally get there. I know NL he just posted a video on YouTube of
Yeah.
he clearing Ascension 20, the hardest difficulty, with one of the characters. But with NL, he never actually goes on to fight the secret final boss.
Yeah.
He always stops at the final boss.
He's like that. I noticed he used to play a lot of Enter the Gungeon, and he would frequently just call it at the normal boss. He didn't go on to fight the secret finale, or not. It's not really a secret in that one, but.
And as I've kind of alluded to on this show, that secret final boss, I mean, you can steamroll the whole run and still just get annihilated by that boss. It's that hard. So I'm eager to see what he does if he ever decides to attempt it. But I have found another YouTuber who basically only plays Slay the Spire, and his name is Baylor Lord. I believe Balor Lord, right?
Mm-hmm.
Baylor Lord. And he's just brilliant. I mean, he's the Slay the Spire guy. He can consistently beat Ascension 20 with a variety of builds, with any character, including the secret final boss. And he can explain to you every single decision he's making, why he's making it, why it's more optimal in this situation. He's just a brilliant guy, and I've learned so much just watching his videos. And it's crazy, because his Slay the Spire videos, his runs are like 2 to 3 hours long. And the reason for that is that he's just sitting there debating a decision sometimes for 5-10 minutes.
He knows the cost.
Right. And I'm just like, the level of insanity this game can reach, where you just have to really game everything out, is insane. It's like chess, right? It's like chess, where you make this decision 50 moves ago that then gives you an avenue for victory an hour later.
Yeah.
It's just, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, honestly. But I am getting better at Slay the Spire. Obviously, I am nowhere close to NL or Baylor Lord levels yet, but I am getting better. Looking forward to continue playing it. And, oh my gosh, I can't tell you the frustration I felt last night, though, where I came so close on the Silent, which is kind of like the thief character in this game. Came so close on the Silent to beating the secret final boss. I was literally like 3 or 4 HP away. And then I died, and I was done with Slay the Spire for the night, but I can't stay away for long. That game has really got its hooks in me, and I think it'll take something like a new video game coming out to tear me away. Maybe I'll play Black Myth Wukong, and maybe that'll stop the Slay the Spire for a little bit, but for now, that's really all I'm doing, and
you
it's just...
have, like 20 days, I think,
until the deluge of video games start dropping.
Isn't Astrobot in September as well?
Yeah, Astrobot, Satisfactory,
God of War PC.
Well, I'm not going to be playing
I know, you're not getting that. I will be, probably. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
But
that'll be a game time
Dragon
decision.
Ball Sparking Zero.
October.
My gosh.
Factorio is in.
Yeah, Factorio. I'm gonna pick up the new Assassin's Creed. I've decided I'm definitely gonna be playing that. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
There's a new Zelda. There's a new Zelda in September.
Oh yeah, new Zelda, new Mario and Luigi. Is that this year as well? I forget.
I don't know. I have no idea. I think that's early 2025.
And also huge for me, Dragon Age. Although the footage so far hasn't really convinced me, Dragon Age holds a very, very special place in my heart as an RPG that I've been into over the years. So I'm gonna pick up Dragon Age as well, and that's October 31st. So
yeah,
it's just very, very soon here. There's going to be a huge drop of video games that I am very, very interested in. But until then, and probably a console too. I imagine PlayStation 5 Pro going to get...
heard anything though.
But the same thing happened with PS4 Pro, where they revealed it for the first time in September, then launched it in November. Okay. So I imagine something similar is going to happen here. But... I do think the back half of this year, or rather the back third of this year, more accurately, will be filled with brand new games that I will be sinking my teeth into.
I can't believe we still haven't heard about the Switch 2 at all.
That is both perplexing and infuriating to me. I just can't believe it, yeah.
Like, I'm itching, because, like, we're due. We are so due for a Mario Kart, for a 3D Mario, for...
You know what's funny? I think the first time we talked about the Switch 2 on the show was actual years ago. Like 3 years ago.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So ever since then, there's been these rumors swirling around. Remember, at first it was like a Switch Pro, right? But maybe that never actually existed. Maybe it's actually the Switch 2.
Yeah.
Or maybe it did exist and they canned it. Who knows? But now, right, there's a Switch 2, initially supposed to launch this year, got delayed for reasons. And now we're sort of hearing that it might not make the first quarter of 2025 either. And I'm just like, guys, the Switch needs a successor, please. It really does.
So on that note, the game I've been playing, I got all the shrines. I want to say 100%ed it because for all intents and purposes, I will not be doing any more of this game. I got all the shrines in Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, wow.
Don't do that. Over half of them are not fun. Probably 70% of them are not fun. I don't like this game, dude. Like, the more of it I play, I'm going to talk about it without even mentioning the story. I'm going to make the case that Tears of the Kingdom kind of
good, because I have not played, I have not beaten it yet.
Don't bother. Like, or no, do go fight Ganon. Go fight Ganondorf. Just so you know, you do get a reward for completing all the shrines. It's horrendous. It'll just make you angry if you don't know what it is already.
So in Breath of the Wild, spoilers or whatever, it was the original tunic, right?
It is not that.
Okay, because I know you can get several tunics in the game already, and I did think the original tunic was a good reward in Breath of the Wild.
It's fine,
if you're saying it's not on that tier, then it's probably not worth it.
It is so much worse than that. It is kind of insulting, maybe a little disrespectful.
Is it another golden poop?
No, it's worse somehow.
Okay.
I won't spoil it if you don't want me to, but
honestly, you can go ahead and spoil. You can go ahead and spoil it. I don't care.
It's a costume called the Mark of the Hero, and it makes you into a Zonai. And it kind of looks like the guy like you have red hair, like the guy from the tapestry. And it's like, who cares?
So what does it do? Does it do anything beside physical appearance?
No.
Change?
Well, you can't wear any armor with it. And it makes you look like that. And it gives you 12 defense. I think it's upgradable, but like, you've already done the whole game. You're not going to upgrade it.
Yeah. That's a weird reward.
It's horrendous, dude. Nobody cared about the Zonai. Again, not going to complain about the story, but one of the biggest problems with the game is nobody cared about the Zonai. They're not
with
fun.
Breath of the Wild, I think the original tunic was a great reward because it was this thing of like, hey, we still remember the old Link, and we know you still do too, and here's a way to sort of remember him. And I thought that was a really kind of nice touch.
Yeah, and that's why this is like doubly insulting. Is now the Tunic of the Wilds is just in a chest in the depths somewhere. It's just in some random chest that nobody cares about. Like, arguably non-canon, because there are a bunch of other chests with old Zelda outfits that are pretty definitively non-canon. They were just stuffed in there because they had to be in the game somewhere. Yeah,
I know you're one of your big beefs with this game is the canon or lack thereof, actually, of coherence to the story.
It's not that it didn't adhere to the canon; it's that it didn't bother to do anything interesting with it and not adhere. Like it breaks off from the canon, which would be fine if they had a good story to tell, but they didn't. It has the worst story that Zelda's ever told. It's just terrible, and like. To find the shrines, there's a secret to finding the shrines. It's related to the depths. You probably already know. Every light route is right under a shrine on the surface. There's 120 shrines on the surface. Do you know the number of shrines? Is it okay if I spoil that?
Yeah, that's fine.
There are 152 total shrines. So
I knew that at one point, yeah.
There are 32 up in the sky. There are 120 on the ground. And all of them are right under a light route. 50 of these shrines, 50 of the just over 150 total shrines are just a Raru's Blessing. There's no puzzle at all. And
wow.
The vast majority of those...
50 of them, really?
50. I think 48 is the exact number. But still,
but don't you have to kind of solve a puzzle to get to those shrines, though?
No, not to the extent you did in Breath of the Wild, at least. Most of them are just a crystal you find and have to carry, which... is not a puzzle. Like, you solve that puzzle one time and it's the same solution every single time. You make one vehicle and it solves that problem everywhere. Some of them are literally just along the path to a dungeon, and they just wanted to put a fast travel point there, I think. And so their solution was to give you a blessing there. I don't know. And like the 32, most of the ones I was missing at the end of the game were all in the sky, because the sky is so boring to spend any time in. There's nothing up there. This game makes me so mad to play, because it opens so similarly to Breath of the Wild. Like, you had that beautiful view. You're like skydiving on the Great Sky Island. You see this incredible island. And if you've watched the trailers, like, the idea that they sold you was that there's going to be these cool new sky islands. You're going to be exploring new areas. There's just going to be cool stuff going on. And the reality is there's nothing in the sky anywhere on the map. There's the water temple and the wind temple are both in the sky. And that is it, other than the Great Sky Island. Other than that, it's just a couple floating rocks in a couple different places with a shrine on them.
From my experience so far, the sky has been definitely the most disappointing piece. But it wasn't like a ruiner for me by any stretch of the imagination, because unlike you, I thought the depths were pretty cool. I actually enjoy going into the depths.
There's nothing down there, though. There's no content. There's the same bosses that you fight in the temple, just copy and pasted all over the place for some reason. Like, there's like 4 of each or something. It's ridiculous. Because I've mapped out most of the depths now. That helped me find the shrines.
Okay, yeah. I mean, exploring the depths, I felt so far, right, that I was getting rewarded for my exploration. I enjoyed finding the old armor pieces and stuff. And
yeah, but there is nothing, like, you're not doing anything. I mean, you can. You have the option to make the depths hard on yourself if you want to. But if you're actually trying to map out the whole thing, what you're going to do is build like a hover bike, and you're going to throw a light bloom on the front of your hover bike, and you're just going to bounce between the chests and the light roots. There's no reason to do anything else. Like, you're going off meta.
I know there were a lot of quests there, and there were some kind of puzzles that tied into
There's only one quest there.
Overworld and the above world. I know there's like find the Yiga one.
There's the Yiga one, and there's the bargaining statue. Those are the only quests down, because there's no NPCs down there. There's nobody to talk to.
Right,
There's no settlements. There's no...
I don't know. I just distinctly... I feel okay going down there. I feel like it's rewarding exploring it, but
there's only one biome. It's the same plants throughout the whole thing. The only visual difference you'll ever run into in the depths is that some parts of it have lava. Other than that, it's one big biome.
Yeah,
and it's just like most of the game is up on the surface. And this is my biggest beef, I think, with Tears of the Kingdom in general, now that I've digested it a little more, is it didn't fix any of the problems that Breath of the Wild had. Breath of the Wild's biggest problem was that it was kind of big and empty. The world was really big and there wasn't that much stuff in it. And that didn't bother me that much in Breath of the Wild. But then Tears of the Kingdom a little more than doubled the size of the world. And it has like 5 temples instead of 4. And it has 150 shrines instead of 120. Like, they did not double the amount of content, but they substantially more than doubled the area it's spread over. And the solution to that is that you don't engage with the world at all, because you fly over it with a hover bike. You don't, even on the surface, there's no reason to engage with the world once you've progressed past a certain point. You're just flying over it. And that's really boring.
I mean, I haven't gotten as far as you, right? But I don't have a hover bike. I'm still kind of traversing most things on foot. Maybe
it's like not even halfway through the game
to the sense of adventure or whatever.
I loved this game at the beginning. Like, the Great Sky Island, all the way through unlocking Tulin at the end of the Wind Temple. I was in love with this game. I thought everything was like perfect about it. And it just kind of fell apart after that, because did you know they added like a whole horse upgrade system? Because I didn't, because there's no reason to ever ride a horse in this game.
I don't remember, man. It's been so long since I've played Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, because it's not worth going back to. It sucks, dude. Like, they didn't
I think that's a really hot take. I don't think it sucks by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, it does. It's an S tier game, but like, it did not improve on Breath of the Wild at all in any way, in my opinion.
I don't know if I agree with that, because usually I'm not a big fan of vehicle building in video games, but
that's not an improvement on Breath of the Wild, though. It's just a different game.
Yeah, it's just different mechanics, right?
Yeah, and I think if they wanted to do a vehicle building Zelda game, they probably should have built a world that's fun to traverse with vehicles instead of one that you just fly over with a hover bike. Because like, building a car is fun, and like a tank or something, but it disappears the second you get out of it. And there's no reason to do it because the combat doesn't support it. The Zonai devices don't do any damage in combat. So those like giant weapons that people build are cool to look at, but wholly impractical. They're not fun to use. The fuse mechanic for weapons is really neat. You can make creative weapons. They're only good for the beginning of the game. After that, you just want to do the highest amount of damage, and that's always like just putting an enemy horn on a sword or something.
Right, yeah.
And the durability system's actually way worse in Tears of the Kingdom, because now, instead of just switching to a new weapon, you have to fuse a new weapon, which means going into your inventory, grabbing a new item to fuse to your sword, dropping it. You can't do this from in the menu for some reason. You have to set it on the ground, and then select fuse, sometimes in the heat of combat. And like, none of that's fun. I don't understand how that ever got through playtesting. It's just really annoying.
Yeah, I guess I'm still kind of in the honeymoon phase with that game.
I'm just gonna say, there's a reason you never finished it, because it's not that good.
I mean, I did the same thing with Breath of the Wild, right? Where I got distracted by something else and came back to it years later. So I imagine I'm going to do the same with Tears of the Kingdom. But I mean, I did not stop playing it because I was not enjoying it. That
I did.
For sure is not the case, right? I stopped playing it because I got addicted to Diablo.
Right.
And then other things came out, and then I sort of just lost.
I had put it down because I wasn't having fun with it. The grind to get all the shrines, at least at the end of the game, is horrendous. I didn't enjoy it.
And I don't know if I would even do that. Right? I didn't do that in Breath of the Wild. I think I came kind of close, but at a certain point I was just like, this isn't fun anymore, so I stopped, right? And I imagine the same thing will happen.
Like Breath of the Wild, the world was built for it. You're so engaged with the environment the whole time. It matters. You're actually climbing the mountains. You're not just flying over them. I knew every square foot of that map, it felt like, by the end of the game. And I did. I found all 120 shrines, and it felt super rewarding. And Tears of the Kingdom, most of the shrines, or not most, but a substantial number of the shrines are like buried in a cave or something, so you're not going to find them unless you found the light route that helps you find them. So you have to explore this bland copy and pasted depths, and then go find the shrine just to find out, oh, the cave was supposed to be the challenge, so it's just a Raru's blessing, so you didn't even get a cool puzzle out of it. And like, of all the puzzles in this game, the puzzles are neat. Like the physics stuff is all neat. It's all cool. There's not a single puzzle in the entire game that makes you think at all. And if it does, you can just skip it by fusing a rocket to your shield to get height or whatever, or using recall to make a floating platform. Why?
I don't know. I think there were some shrines that the shrines that I remember, right, I thought were pretty creative, where I felt like there were multiple solutions to the problems presented in the shrine. Like some you could just sort of break with whatever you build or whatever, and obviously there's some intended solutions that maybe you don't figure out, and maybe you come up with several other weird solutions to that problem. And I think that's where Tears of the Kingdom's strength
I tried to do the intended solution for every puzzle.
In the variety of how you can overcome puzzles in this game.
But it's not like... That's fun at first, but eventually it's just easy. There are no challenging puzzles. The only shrines I really enjoyed were the tests where they take away all of your items and make you do a combat trial in your underwear, basically. I thought those were really fun because you couldn't cheese
those were neat, but I think I prefer the ones that make you interface with the mechanics more, where it's like, hey, figure out how to get this ball into this cup, basically.
I think I would enjoy those if they ever ramped up at all, but they don't. They're all so easy.
I don't know. Maybe I distinctly remember bashing my head against a couple of them. I mean, they never like stumped me, but some of them took me like 20, 30 minutes.
The only one I ever had to leave and come back to was a combat one, because I only had 4 hearts. I never got stumped. And even if you do get stumped, there's always like any of the buttons you can press with a bomb. Like there's always just an out if you want to take it. That every shrine in the game is skippable in some way.
Right, yeah.
And not skippable as in you walk out and leave. Like skippable as in there are basic mechanics in the game that allow you to break every shrine. And that's not fun. That's like, I could also just turn the game off and go outside. Like, why do they let you? I think every shrine in the game would be better if you weren't allowed to use recall in it, for instance. Recall is not the solution of any fun puzzles.
Remind me what recall is.
Recall is the one where you can make an item go back in time.
Oh, yeah.
That's neat in the open world. There are a lot of times it comes up where something would have been annoying if you didn't have it. But as a puzzle solution, all they ever do where you're like mandatory using recall is making gears turn backwards. That's not fun. Like, it's not interesting. They should just turn recall off in the shrines and they're immediately way better. And
yeah, I mean, I want to try and argue some of these points you're making, but I lack the memory to do so. So
it's very fresh in my mind. It's such a frustrating game. And I think the worst part is Breath of the Wild kind of felt like a tech demo in some ways. Like it's one of my favorite games I've ever played, but you finish it and all you're thinking is, God, I can't wait for what they do next. And what they did is basically throw away the entire, like...
Well, what they did... I mean, I can very clearly see how a game like Tears of the Kingdom gets made, right? Breath of the Wild comes out, by far the best-selling Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, easily.
Still is.
The highly creative team that makes these Zelda games is now faced with the dilemma, hey, do we iterate on this idea that is clearly the moneymaker, clearly the winning idea here, or do we innovate and do something completely new? And I feel like they had to try and make a compromise out of both of those ideas where it was like, okay, we're going to make another Breath of the Wild, but what can we do to change it as much as we can while still making it Breath of the Wild? And those two ideas are kind of like paradoxical.
Yeah.
But I think with those kind of competing philosophies, what you get is Tears of the Kingdom, which is Breath of the Wild, but slightly different.
But it doesn't iterate. They didn't fix anything. Like there were clear things that people had problems with. I guess they kind of did temples, although I definitely praised the temples in Tears of the Kingdom a lot when that game was new, and I don't think I would going back. I don't think they're that much better than Divine Beasts. With the exception of,
there's step up, but there's still nowhere close to traditional Zelda dungeons, in my opinion.
And they didn't fix any of the annoying things, like all the UI stuff. Like the UI of Breath of the Wild was bad when it came out, and now, like, releasing a game 6 years later, it's horrendous. Did they not? They had 6 years, they didn't think about this at all?
But I suppose from their perspective, right, they were thinking, this is our most successful game ever, right? I don't know how comfortable they felt changing too many things, which...
I guess.
I mean, obviously they can't do it.
Fundamentally, the gameplay loop is different now.
Right, I mean, they changed the powers, right? But, like, it was very much same mechanics, same Link, same,
same
world.
Same entire map with almost no changes.
And which is very strange, right? I mean, they've never done anything like that before, ever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even Majora's Mask, same Link, but completely different story, completely different map, all of that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom was a success. Breath of the Wild was a revolution. They cannot do it again, right? They cannot use this map a third time.
No,
so they will have to come up with something that captures the new Zelda spirit, but further iterates on it.
Yeah, I think the most frustrating thing about Tears of the Kingdom is when you walk away from Breath of the Wild, you see all these things that you want the next Zelda to do. And when you walk away from Tears of the Kingdom, you see all these things you absolutely do not want them to ever do again because it ruined the game. If I have a hover bike in the next game, I'm not going to buy it because it ruins the game. If I like any of those vehicle building mechanics, it was it was an interesting idea, but it just isn't balanced at all, that I can just build a plane and fly over Hyrule.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you really have to worry about that, right? I mean,
no, they're not
even in the worst case scenario, let's say worst case scenario, they revisit this world again, they'll change up Link's powers, right? They're not going to, at the bare minimum, they're going to do that. So, but I don't even think you have to worry about that. I think what they do next is going to be something completely different.
Because I would love to see a version of Tears of the Kingdom where they actually do anything with this, like with this physics engine that they clearly spent 6 years working on and then had to throw a game together. In the last month.
Do think the physics are here to stay because that's part of the magic of what makes New Zelda so good.
Yeah, and Tears of the Kingdom does iterate on that. The physics and everything, the interactions are way better in Tears of the Kingdom than in Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
But they just don't do anything with it. Like all you do is melt some ice and like. There's like one puzzle where you wrap a chain around a wheel, and that's like blowing the mind of every programmer in the world. But I bet every non-programming gamer was like, "Oh, that was an easy puzzle." or barely even a puzzle at all because it was obvious what you needed to do. They just didn't do any... Like, you never had to build a tank in this game. You never had any reason to do it, really. But the mechanics clearly... Like, they spent 6 years making a mechanic set that made that really fun to do, and then didn't make a world that encouraged you to do it at all. And that sucks. That's just a shame.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much a case of where those building mechanics... To actually play the game, you had to interface with them on a very surface level.
Yeah.
But obviously people who dove deep into this game could make crazy things with those mechanics, but
you can't do anything with them. Like, there's no...
Right, but what I'm saying is, I don't think the game was designed around those people. The game was designed around the people just basically mastering the basics of those mechanics.
But then why did it take them 6 years to make sure it worked if they didn't want you to do this advanced stuff? I don't know. I think if it were me, if I could rewrite history, this game is just a DLC with like 40 shrines and the 2 better dungeons and a cool Ganondorf fight and no story at all. And it's a better piece of content for that. And I'd pay $40 for it with a smile on my face. And you'd never hear me talking anything but positively about it. But
we are definitely going to get a lot of clicks on on these clips for sure.
The increase in scale to get it to be worth $70 ruined the game. Like, adding the depths, there's nothing down there. You should cut it out completely. The Sky Islands, cut them out completely. There's nothing of value up there. Just give us 40 new shrines, the Spirit Temple, the Construct Factory, and the cool vehicle building stuff as a DLC, so that it's not an entire game that's kind of spoiled.
See,
by the fact
I don't know. I think I can maybe understand your perspective as someone who spent, I don't know, maybe, what would you say, 100 plus hours with this game,
I'm
right?
a little over 100 to get all the shrines.
But to me, right, as someone with, I don't know, 50 or maybe less hours in this game, and while I agree with you, there's not nearly enough variety in the sky or in the depths, the actual variety of transitioning between those 3 tiers of the world and doing things that I like, quests, objectives, whatever, finding things, what have you, as I progressed through those 3 layers is pretty rewarding to me at the 50 or so hour mark. But
there's nothing up in the sky. Like, you do
right
between the surface and the depths.
The sky has very minimal puzzles, right? To me, the sky is the least impressive out of the 3.
It's, easily.
It doesn't have really anything, but teleporting up there and jumping down never gets old.
Yeah, but it trivializes getting anywhere. Like in Breath of the Wild, if you wanted to get to the top
but here's
of
the thing: they had to trivialize getting anywhere because you've already gotten there in Breath of the Wild, right? So if you had to make those same hikes again in Tears of the Kingdom, it would feel kind of repetitive. So they had to change the traversal to make that, I think, more palatable.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, that it would be trivial to make those hikes again. My counterpoint is that I voluntarily have made those hikes twice because Breath of the Wild, it is so satisfying to play Breath of the Wild that I would just do it again.
Yeah, the sense of exploration in Breath of the Wild especially, I think, is unmatched because A, you're exploring that world for the first time, and B, you're exploring it largely on foot, right? It is a journey playing that game. And I think the sort of point of Tears of the Kingdom was that you've made the journey, now look and see how you can get from point A to point B in a much faster / cooler way or whatever.
But that's also why I think it would be better as a DLC.
Yeah. No, I mean I understand your argument makes sense. But they did squeeze 100-hour game out of it.
Yeah, but I only enjoyed like a lot less than 100 hours of it were enjoyable. Like a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 70 of those hours are me just looking for shrines. Like, the main enjoyable story of this game is 15 to 30 hours, probably. And frankly, you should probably cut all the cutscenes out of there because they're not enjoyable. Not 2 of them are enjoyable. It just...
Yeah, I don't know. The new, even with Breath of the Wild, right? The new kind of Zelda cutscenes, not really doing it for me. I don't think The Legend of Zelda is a game series that needs cutscenes.
I agree. So, well, I don't know. The Twilight Princess, they've done it well in the past. The Twilight Princess cutscenes are really good, in my opinion. Or at least in comparison. And then some you may not have gotten in Tears of the Kingdom. The finale cutscene is excellent. the final.
Yeah, I always hear the final battle finale of Tears of the Kingdom is very, very good. So
I can't criticize it too much for this, but because Breath of the Wild is kind of the same way. The best gameplay you're going to get in Tears of the Kingdom is on the Great Sky Island, and then the best story is during the fight with Ganondorf at the very end. And the final memory, I don't know if you completed the
not yet.
Okay, don't bother. Look it up on YouTube. That's the other thing. They had another way that Tears of the Kingdom is just objectively worse than Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild had the memories where you had to look at the picture and figure out where it was to find the memories, and that's like an actual puzzle. And then Tears of the Kingdom just said, oh, we're going to put a giant X. It's not shaped like an X, but it is essentially just a giant X literally on the ground, visible from the sky, that you go there and find a puddle, and that's the replacement for memories. There's no puzzle, there's no engaging gameplay in any way to get these memories, and then to tell you the worst story you've ever heard in your entire life.
Gosh. Well, I guess the puddle thing, right? I would argue that they're encouraging you to use the verticality of the world, which is, I think, cool, right? Seeing the world from that perspective and then using that perspective to solve a puzzle, I think is kind of neat. Did it warrant like 20 puzzles? Probably not. But
it's not calling it a puzzle is so generous, because it's just a thing on the ground that you go to and grab a puddle. It's not a puzzle at all. Actually,
it's not a puzzle, but you
just have to go there. Like, all you do is walk there or fly
there. You go there, but you have to look at it from a fresh perspective, right? Like, if you were just walking there, you wouldn't be able to find it, probably.
That's how I found all of them.
Isn't this the thing where you have to, like, go in the sky and see the shape of the...
It's just a bunch of glowy grass. You can see it from the ground just fine. Then you find
I'm trying to remember. What's the thing where you look at... You can only see it from high up, where it's like a shape.
Oh, they only do that one time. That's to get into the water temple.
No. Okay, we're thinking of different things, because this is definitely like a thing in Tears of the Kingdom that you do over and over again.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Then there is the thing where
I think it's what you're talking about, right? Where it's like you have to go up in the sky and you can see where like the puddle is.
Yeah,
because it's like a whole shape. Right, like there's
like a drawing, the geoglyphs, but there's no puzzle.
Geoglyphs. Like,
you can just walk around it until you find the puddle. It takes 2 minutes. Like, they're not very big.
Walk around it. I mean, but the whole point is to see it from above, right?
Well, you in the story they have you go to the what's it called, the Forgotten Temple, and they just have pictures of all of them on the wall. Like, you've already seen them all.
Yeah, I just don't remember.
Okay, yeah, they show you a picture of all of them, and then they're also on the map. And also, if you find them out of order, you see the story out of order, which spoils it, which, who cares? It's not good. But it does spoil the story to see it out of order in a way that Breath of the Wild, it didn't really matter, because you already knew what was going to happen in Breath of the Wild.
But everyone's going to see it out of order, right? Because you're just finding these things across the world.
No, it does tell you the order you're supposed to find them in at one point. I missed that, but it does tell you.
But there's no way anyone does that, though. That's crazy.
I know
you're
exactly,
exploring the world.
Which is why it kind of, like, why did they tell the story this way? Why? Or tell it at all, because there's not a single good moment in the whole thing. Like, you could just get rid of it and the game is better for it. Much like the depths and the sky. It's just the depth. Like, why are there caves and the depths? You could have combined those two things into just the caves, and the caves could have been a little better, because the caves, there's 150 caves in this game. Why? Like that?
I like the caves.
I like the caves too, but I don't like 150 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are designed for. You shouldn't do everything in this game.
That's like, I agree with that.
You do everything in the previous Zelda games, and it's very rewarding, and you feel like you've eaten a meal, right?
Yeah.
But if you do everything in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you'll feel bloated and gross.
I don't think it was unreasonable to think somebody would do all 120 and 152 shrines. I think...
I don't think that's unreasonable, but most people aren't going to do that. I'm just telling you.
I agree with that, but I think there should have been... And I think the reward in Breath of the Wild was acceptable. The one in Tears of the Kingdom is insulting. There could have been some reward. There's like in a Mario game, like Bowser's Fury, you get all the cat shines. You only need like 60 of them to beat the game. If you get all 100, You get a harder version of the final boss. It's barely changed, and I think there's like one gag added to the cutscene. So it doesn't really matter. It's not so much that it's not so much that there was new content, it's that it gave me a reason to replay that finale after I had just collected all these collectibles. And Tears of the Kingdom doesn't do that at all. There's no reason to go fight the final boss again. So, for me, for my experience, Tears of the Kingdom just ends on a whimper. Like, it ended on me not having fun. So, whereas if they had given me any reason to go redo that final boss, maybe I at least would have been enjoying my final moments with the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, but I mean, I agree with you. I think if I was finding every shrine in that game, same thing with Breath of the Wild, where I just got sick of it. I was just like, I'm not enjoying this anymore, so I'm going to stop. But these games are so massive that I think you really just have to. It's like a giant buffet. You pick and eat what you want, and then you walk away. Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you shouldn't find all the Koroks. I don't think I did a single side quest in Tears of the Kingdom because they're all detritus, like just miserable experiences.
I did a few, and I enjoyed them.
They're so
boring. I just enjoy. So here's the thing. I don't really care about the writing. I don't really care about the story.
Then what are you doing in the side quest?
I love seeing the world, exploring the world. That is the biggest draw to me in this game. And the side quests are just one vehicle to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So
I did the one for the stables where you have to find all the stables and each of them have a little quest at them. I did that, and I did Tahiri Town, and I did Hateno Village. The Hateno Village one is awful. The others I thought were just fine. But I have like 60 that I haven't started yet in my catalog right now. That I just
some of them are quite good from what I remember. I remember there was one where I think you had to. Gosh, I wish my memory was better. I think you had to go underneath the Great Plateau and find something there. That was
that's the bargaining statue. That's the one. That's the one good thing in the depths, I think. If you're not, Yiga's fine, but this was actually good. This made me think that the depths was actually going to be something. It explains the post spirits everywhere, and it gives you a way. Like, there's exclusive armor sets locked behind that quest. And it's like, oh, there's actually going to be like a story to the depths. And then, rug pull. No, there's not actually. That's the only good thing in the depths. And there's just a lot of that in this game. A lot of rug pulls.
Yeah, I guess as someone who, again, I really don't care about the story in a Zelda game. But I do think Zelda games are masterful at creating worlds to explore. And I think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the best Zelda worlds.
One world.
The
best Zelda world.
Yeah, the best Zelda world to explore, right? Yeah. Obviously, I have a bias for Wind Waker, but it's a very different kind of game. But I think the world they've crafted along with the physics mechanics, it just makes exploration so enjoyable. And even to the extent that you've seen this world once in Breath of the Wild, it was still fun for me to go back and explore it and see how it changed and interface with the new layers. Even if I will admit the new layers weren't as populated as I'd like them to be, but it was still fun to explore.
I just feel like it's also surface level. The exploration, like maybe I just have an illness, but it's a criticism I've seen a lot of other people. Like my buddy Tyler didn't even bother to finish the game. Once you can have a hover bike and you're just flying over the world, you're not interfacing with it at all. And I think, most people got to that point eventually because it's, once you can strap a fan onto something, it's very intuitive that you're going to fly. And it's not, I don't know, you can't just expect a player not to do that.
Right, but I guess that it is a choice, though. It
is,
you don't
and I didn't
have
do
to
it.
do it.
I stopped doing it for finding these last few shrines. It's how I was able to finally finish the game, as I kind of just took that tool away from myself and was able to enjoy it a little more. But I shouldn't have to handicap myself to enjoy your game. That's not, because that's just nagging you in the back of your mind. It's always nagging you. Why am I climbing this mountain? Why am I spending 20 minutes to do something I could have done in 5 seconds?
Yeah, perhaps they gave the player too many tools in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, it just should have been more expensive, I think.
Being able to build everything kind of, it is cool trivializing things at first, but then it kind of takes away the purpose
Yeah, you have to, like, I mentioned I made a point to try to find, and some of them I couldn't find, the intended solution for the shrine, because the cheese was so immediately obvious. But I would usually try to find what they wanted me to do first, because it would probably be more fun. Some of them, though, it just...
See, you just gotta play this game like me, where you drop it for months at a time, come back, don't remember anything, and have to relearn the mechanics and fall in love all over again.
I guess. I don't know. I don't see myself ever replaying this game, though. I see myself replaying the opening, maybe, like through the Great Sky Island. But if I ever have an itch to go back to this world, I'm just going to play Breath of the Wild. I think it's a better game.
I agree with you. Well, I was going to say, I don't see myself ever playing Breath of the Wild again, too.
I've already played it twice. I
that's
actually
crazy.
Have been kind of wanting to play it recently because...
But both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, to me, are games that are just so massive in scope there, I can't imagine ever playing them again. I mean, it was similarly with Elden Ring. The only reason I played that game, even though it is like my favorite game, the only reason I played it again was because of the DLC. But like, I can't imagine sinking another 100 hours into something I've already done, even if I love doing it. You know,
it wouldn't be another 100 hours. Like if I started a Breath of the Wild playthrough today, I'd be done with it in a week and probably under 20 hours. It's just, once you know where stuff is, it's not that big. And I know that world.
But here's the thing. Once you know where stuff is, that takes away the magic of playing it. To me, at least, right?
Yeah,
because
it's never
a lot of it to me is just seeing what's over that next hill or whatever.
Yeah, it's never going to feel quite the same.
It's so important to me, yeah.
But I did. My second playthrough of Breath of the Wild was much faster. And that was the one where I actually found all 120 shrines. But I had a really good time with it. That game is just, it holds up. The mechanics... The actual mechanics of climbing a mountain in that game and fighting the enemies along the way and doing the shrines. The shrines are also typically much longer in Breath of the Wild. The shrines in Tears of the Kingdom are so short. Just usually one puzzle and you're done. Maybe two puzzles. It's just... I don't know. I wish it had been a DLC where they had just done a lot less and focused on it a lot more. Especially after playing the Elden Ring DLC, which was much bigger than Tears of the Kingdom is. In my opinion, no, I don't even think there's opinion there. There was far more added in the Elden Ring DLC than was added in Tears of the Kingdom. If you're not counting, we can't talk about dev costs because of the physics engine stuff ramped up the dev costs of Tears of the Kingdom incomprehensibly.
But I think it's very clear that Elden Ring took inspiration from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
and in a lot of ways, I do think it's an iteration on it in which you do have this massive open world, but it's a lot less empty than the Zelda worlds.
I wish Zelda had learned anything from Elden Ring, but it didn't have time to, first of all.
Right,
They came out a year apart, but I wish Zelda had iterated on Breath of the Wild, and it just didn't do that. They did not iterate. They just did a side thing that should have been a DLC. And I'm not arguing that there's not enough content to justify it being a full game. They did just put a bunch of stuff in the game. I just don't think it's very good.
That's fair. And I mean, you're not really alone in that, right? I mean, no. I've seen over the years more and more critical kind of opinions of Tears of the Kingdom.
I mean, not even necessarily over the years. I was a big fan of Zelda tuber, like YouTubers that played Zelda, and they all immediately abandoned it. They did not like it.
Well, yeah, I mean, even when it came out, right?
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me where when Breath of the Wild came out, you had the same thing where there were some people that were like, I hate this new style of Zelda.
Yeah.
And then when Tears of the Kingdom came out, some people who loved Breath of the Wild said, I hate Tears of the Kingdom. And then some people who hated Breath of the Wild, like Mike, right, said he loved Tears of the Kingdom. So it's really interesting to me that while Zelda has reached more people than ever with these last two games, they're seemingly also the most divisive, where I think the previous mainline Zelda games are essentially universally loved. You don't really see people saying, oh, I hated
Skyward Sword.
Wind Waker. Well, Skyward Sword being the exception, you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't really see people saying, oh, I hated Majora's Mask or Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, right? Obviously, you can have opinions of like, yeah, Twilight Princess wasn't as good as the others, but generally, the sentiment is very positive around those games. But
yeah,
I'm definitely seeing a lot more split.
Yeah, there were a lot of people
on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
They were definitely more drowned out, I think, on Breath of the Wild because there were so many new Zelda fans for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
that the people that hate Tears of the Kingdom, and again, I don't hate this game. It is the most it is the most disappointing and frustrating game I've ever played, I think. But when it is good, it is good. I like even the puzzles, they're not hard, they are fun. And I like the temples and the moments that hit like the Ganon fight are peak Zelda. There's nothing else like it in the entire franchise. So it's still like an A, or it might even still be an S tier game. It's just like it could have been so much better, and it would have cost nothing to make it better.
I do think they were in some ways restricted by the success of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Where Breath of the Wild did things for that franchise that were just unimaginable. Yeah. Where obviously Zelda was always this critical darling, but now it's selling,
the best sell. It's like the third best selling game on the Switch, I think.
Yeah, it's in the same echelon as something like Mario Kart and Smash.
Yeah. I mean, God, I could do the same rant about Animal Crossing New Horizons not being that good.
Yeah. Well,
and it's the second best selling game on the Switch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a combination of things, right? Obviously, this new, fresh direction for Zelda was huge, but also the Switch being what is probably going to be the most popular console ever made. You know, it was just the sort of perfect storm to take Zelda into the stratosphere popularity-wise.
Yeah.
But we're past all that now, right? The next Zelda game, mainline Zelda, after the literal Zelda game that is coming out this year, will probably be another sandbox-style Zelda game.
Yeah,
probably going to be on the Switch too. So I'm very excited to see what lessons they learned, what they do now, because I think they know too, right? Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom was a massive success, but they can't just keep playing in the same world over and over again. So something fresh, something new, something exciting is going to happen with that next Zelda game. And I'm going to be there when it does.
Yeah. I don't know. I buy it on launch, but I will be a negative. I will be negative. I will be going in very apprehensively to the pre-launch materials. You know, they trick, because I feel a little tricked with regards to Tears of the Kingdom a little bit. They for sure made it feel like story was going to be a big part of this game in those trailers.
Well, to be fair, they did the same thing with Breath of the Wild.
Did they?
They absolutely sold the story of that game. If you go back and watch trailer 2 for Breath of the Wild, you're going to think this game is going to have the greatest story in a Zelda game ever. It's absolutely a thing they did.
It has that scene of Zelda
both
crying,
games,
doesn't it? Yeah. They got to stop doing that. These stories are not that good.
No, I mean, I learned my lesson.
I mean, the Breath of the Wild story kicks the crap out of the Tears of the Kingdom story.
But they're both not good.
They're both not good.
In my opinion,
pretty bad, yeah.
That's what I keep saying. I don't play Zelda games for the story. I really just genuinely don't care.
Asking for a passable story is not much, though. Wind Waker has a passable story. Twilight Princess, I would argue, has a good story. Ocarina of Time has a good story. Like, there is a pedigree here.
I agree with you, right? A passable story is not much to ask for, but a mediocre story is not going to mar the experience for me personally.
Does. It's not. I
don't know if I'd actively call it bad.
I would. It is bad. Like, it is not consistent in its own rules. It is delivered. You watch the same exact cutscene 4 times for some reason. It's just in the way. It would be better if you removed it entirely and made a DLC. It is actually, I don't think Breath of the Wild is bad. I think Breath of the Wild is mediocre and doesn't get in the way of the story. But Tears of the Kingdom is actually so much worse that it is bad, I think. It just
so far it's the exact same as Breath of the Wild to me. I mean, it's just
you haven't even seen it. You haven't done the tiers.
Right, I've done half of it probably.
So,
but
it's bad.
So
it just gets worse. Every single cutscene makes it worse. It's horrendous, dude. It's actually bad enough that it made the experience worse for me at launch when I was still in the honeymoon phase with this game.
That's funny. I'm curious to see what they could do to elicit such a strong response, because that's the thing to me, because it's just not. I can't imagine them doing any there's just such low stakes kind of. I mean, the stakes are there, but the story presentation is just not the focus, right?
It's just not annoying and in the way. It's bad. The story itself is inoffensively bad, I guess. The presentation of it as the reward, as your reward for this dungeon you just cleared, you get to watch a 5-minute identical cutscene. As the reward for finding this tier, you get to see Zelda talk to King Raru in a field for 2.5 minutes about literally nothing.
About anime nonsense.
And the I didn't look through the credits. I watched a video of somebody else who was mad at this and looked through the credits. The only mention of story in the credits at all, there were no writers on this game. There were 4 people on storyboarding, and I want to give them credit. The composition of the shots in this game is immaculate. I actually think the cinematography is really good.
Oh, yeah.
They could have hired a writer on Fiverr, though, to give it a once-over and, like, make the writing not terrible. Like, it genuinely, like, I could have knocked it out in an afternoon. I could fix this thing. Like, not fix it to make it good, but fix it to make it inoffensive. It genuinely, like, this game had to cost millions of dollars, took 6 years to make, and they couldn't have a single person on staff for a couple months at the end to put together a cohesive narrative. Why? Why not? Why are we making people who have no business doing this do it? Why can Nintendo not hire a guy for story on their biggest franchise?
Nintendo is just not really known for their stories.
I don't think you have any excuse for that when you're selling the numbers. Breath of the Wild,
but I do agree with you. They absolutely sold both of these games as story-heavy games, and they're just straight up not. They are that was a bold-faced lie.
And I don't even need it to be that good. Like, genuinely, hire a guy on Fiverr to give it an afternoon to clean up your mess. Like, why is it so bad? I was trying not to talk about story. You started it.
Yeah, I mean, well,
yeah.
I think we've been reflecting on Tears of the Kingdom for an hour now, so
this game makes me
get it all out now.
Yeah, I'm probably never going to talk about... Well, no, I can't make that promise. I'm going to be giving this exact same rant whenever we do a tier list of Switch games. What's crazy is I still think this goes in S tier, even after all this. That's the worst part. It's just...
That's amazing.
There's just no excuse to make these mistakes. It could have been so much better.
That just speaks to Nintendo and the Zelda team's quality, though.
I mean, yeah, it's maybe an A tier, but... Because Breath of the Wild is an
still,
easy S.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who listens to this segment probably is under the impression
he hated it.
Despises this game, right?
No, I mean, I've got all 152 shrines. I'd have to be sick in my head to hate it. Well,
exactly,
I didn't 100% Subnautica. I did finish it, though, and I hated that game.
Like I said, right, I think the design of Breath of the Wild, the success of Breath of the Wild, was more of a shackle than they probably would have liked it to be for the design of Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do next, because I do think we're finally going to move away from this world and the story.
It's also insane how embarrassed it seems to be a sequel to Breath of the Wild. Like, none of the characters remember you.
That I thought was weird, right? Even as someone who didn't care much for the story, I thought it was a little strange that the timeline just seemed to be messed with for reasons.
And they had to explain that the shrines are gone in an interview later. The director just said, after Calamity Ganon was destroyed, they mysteriously disappeared. That's the canonical explanation for why all the Sheikah shrines are gone.
Somehow, Palpatine returned.
Yeah, just like, I'm serious. You could have thought about... Like, he'd clearly never thought about it before that interview for even a single second. Like, why? That's not asking very much.
It's because he knows, man. He knows that people don't care about the Zelda story.
I think he's wrong. People do care. Like, they'll buy the game anyway because it's still so fun, but people do care. Like, it does matter. and if they're like, if they don't care about the story, why is it such a focus in the marketing? Why?
Yeah, that is the biggest puzzle to me.
Why is one of the main quests in the game, one of the biggest main story beats, or, I guess I said it right there, main story beats, but why put the tears in at all? Why not just do less story if you don't care about it? Why just keep doing it badly? I don't understand.
Maybe they think it's really good.
I mean, do they not read reviews? Because, like, reviews are not kind to the stories of these games.
I mean, honestly, though, I think, and this is probably something that needs to be addressed in the industry as a whole, I think most publishers just look at that Metacritic score.
Yeah. What is this here?
There are entire, like, bonus payout structures devised around Metacritic scores at AAA companies. I don't know if you know this, Connor, but
yeah,
it is very much the case that the devs will get paid a lot more if it's a 90 plus.
This is this is kind of an issue with the way reviews work too. This game has a 96 on Metacritic. I feel like if critics had more than a week to review this game, this would be more in the 80s. Like
I don't know if
like
I agree
an 89,
with that at all.
88. It's not a 96.
I think it's a 90 plus game.
I do not.
There's just no way it's below a 90 in my opinion.
It's just not
even with the flaws you listed.
If you're completely ignoring the fact that you've already seen everything in Breath of the Wild, it's a 96. You cannot ignore that though. It is a direct sequel.
If you have never played Breath of the Wild and you just played Tears of the Kingdom,
this is an easy
probably
96,
the greatest
98.
video game you've ever played in your life.
But that's just not the reality. There are so few people who are going to play Tears of the Kingdom without playing Breath of the Wild first. That's like a non-existent market almost.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but they do exist. A couple of my friends did exactly that, which is crazy.
My cousin did. Or no, he bought it. He bought it and then never played it because he, just... I don't know.
He does that?
He didn't play it. Yeah, he played it for an hour and then there was a power outage and he gave up and it's been a year.
That's funny.
But I just don't... This is not a 96 game. That's insanity. It's a really good 89, I think.
Breath of the Wild was in 97?
Yeah, it should be.
Is that right?
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is a 97, infamously under the 98 that Ocarina of Time has.
Of Ocarina of Time, yeah.
Which is insanity to me. I hate
But here's the thing. I mean, Ocarina of Time came out, what, 30 years ago?
I think. Yeah.
I mean, standards were way different back then.
Yeah, God, that was almost 30 years ago. That's crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a game getting 90 plus today is a way more difficult feat to achieve than it was a decade ago, even.
That's true.
So
it's not a 96. That's insanity.
Yeah, I don't know. We definitely have different opinions on this. I definitely think it should be 90 plus, but I think you disagree.
Yeah. I mean, I could be negotiated to a 91, I think.
That way the devs still get their bonuses, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Nintendo might not do it that way.
I can't imagine.
But I know a lot of Sony first parties do it that way.
It's a sick way to do it, in my opinion. That should not have anything to do. Like, if anything, your bonus should be tied to sales, not Metacritic score. That's insane.
Yeah. Honestly, it should be kind of both, right? If it sells well, if it's received well, you should be rewarded for those
I guess
things,
it's not fair if a game is critically acclaimed, but then just the marketing team messes up, I guess. But
yeah. But honestly, I mean, the Metacritic scores do have an impact on sales a lot of the time, too. Where people see it's a highly rated game and are more interested in it.
For what it's worth, it's an 8.4 user score on Metacritic. I know user score is like meaningless, but
yeah, user score is truly meaningless.
It's rarely that much lower. It's usually higher, I feel like.
Dude, there's all sorts of agendas. People downvote things, create fake bots to downvote things. That you can't really take user scores into account because people are man-children.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild's only an 8.8 user score. It is a lot higher,
But anyways, all right, we've been going on forever. This is crazy. We talk more about Tears of the Kingdom than like the actual topic of our episode.
I could talk about it for an hour. It makes me so angry. I could go for another hour. Like if we had the time, we don't. But
I respect the righteous fury. Hopefully, you'll be vindicated when they release their next game.
There's no evidence that they learned anything in this time.
Well, I just think by necessity they're going to have to change things because they can't just do the same thing 3 times in a row.
Well,
so
Call of Duty did it for 20 years.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
That would be
Zelda
insane.
Just for the next 10 Zelda games were all on this map
can
with
I tell
just
you
different powers.
Can I tell you something kind of sick? I kind of want them to do a 3rd game on this map so they can clean it up and wrap it up. Like clean up, end it on a positive note, or even a DLC for Tears of the Kingdom to leave things positive in my mind.
If they did a 3rd game on this map, they would have to change the overworld drastically because they changed it for Tears of the Kingdom, but not by much. But they would have to basically. It would almost have to be unrecognizable.
You want to hear something disgusting, by the way? Apparently, somewhere along the way in development, there were a lot of sky islands that were like fun to explore and everything. And the director of the game said that it made the sky look messy, and he removed them.
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
It's so infuriating. Such a colossal miss. That's like nobody wants interesting.
Aonuma said that? Was Aonuma the director?
I think so.
That's crazy.
I don't know if it was him that said it. It was someone in a directorial position on the game, though.
Wow,
I don't know if it was
that's
the
wild.
director. But yeah, that was in an interview. Was that he thought it made the skies messy, so he took it all out.
But
and
that's
I assume
so much
that
cut
content got
content.
recycled.
That's crazy.
No,
it must have. Yeah,
it had to have been recycled. But the problem with that is that I wanted, like, the sky was so cool. I wanted to spend time up there. And there's
Dude, you know what's funny? That reminds me of this interview I read recently with the director of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Where he said he was so paranoid when the game was coming out because they had to cut so much content. He thought it would get reamed in reviews.
That's
where I'm just like, dude, are you serious?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, what it reminds me of is Miyamoto telling him nobody wants trying to cut the story out of Mario Galaxy. They didn't, but he hated the storybook stuff in Mario Galaxy. He thought, he hated it. He didn't like the orchestral music either. It just reminds me of that. Yeah, he liked it when it came out, but he was originally not on board. They had to put together a demo behind his back and show him how cool it was. I
mean, even these Rockstar directors, Aonuma, Miyamoto, they're not perfect people. So, but at least they had the wisdom to see when they're wrong and kind of reassess a lot of the time.
I think there's a lot of parallels between Breath of the Wild and Mario Galaxy and Tears of the Kingdom and Galaxy 2. Both started as a DLC and then got big and became a new game that is largely forgotten.
Do we know for sure Tears of the Kingdom started
you've played
as
it, right?
a DLC?
You played the game, right? It for sure started as a DLC.
I don't know, man.
You can feel it in the game. The structure, it feels like it started as a DLC. I'll Google it right now to see if we have...
I think that was just a commonly held misconception.
Yeah, it is. According to Wikipedia, the developers had thought of several features to include as downloadable content for Breath of the Wild, but the sheer number of ideas inspired them to create a new game instead.
Oh, okay.
So in the conceptual stage, I guess it was a DLC. There's no way of knowing how far it
Yeah, I actually remember reading that too, where they had so many ideas they couldn't fit in Breath of the Wild, and that kind of just became a new game.
Yeah.
But
I
don't know.
Also, why you're going to do a new game in the same world? There are so many regions in Breath of the Wild that nothing happens in, like Faron and Akala. Why did we go back to the same 4 towns to do regional phenomena when there are these other areas? Why wasn't there something in the on Mount Lanayru or something? Why do we go to the same exact places for the new temples as in Breath of the Wild? That's just such a weird choice.
Well, I think the idea was to show how these towns have changed, show NPCs again, show how their story arcs progressed.
You could have done both, though. You could have used the underutilized areas of the map, and they just chose not to for some reason. You still spend
to be fair, those 4 areas are kind of the more interesting parts of the map, because a lot of the inner parts of the map are fields and forests and such.
Yeah, but they're only interesting because that's where they decided to put stuff in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you're right in that there's a lot of biome diversity, so they could just pick areas that were congruent with the temples.
A different ice mountain than there's 2. They could have done, I guess if you want to do a desert, there's only the one desert, thank God. I don't know. I'm done. we can move on. This game just makes me so mad. There's so many missed opportunities.
All right, well, do you agree with Connor? Let us know.
If you're still listening.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you're still listening, if you haven't been sworn off this show by these flaming hot takes. But anyway, so have you been playing anything else, Connor?
I've been playing Yoshi's Island. It's really good. This is my first time ever playing it.
All right, maybe you'll have more to say next week. Or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just a Mario game. It's pretty simple. It's good. Of course it's good.
Of course it's good. Some might say that about Zelda as well,
Tears of the Kingdom is a fine game. It's an 89, probably.
All right, I think that'll do it for us this week. Thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. Rate, and review us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast services you use. Thank you, Connor.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.